Welcome to the Mile High Hoops podcast right here on Denver Sports with me, Jake Shapiro, talking about all things Denver Nuggets basketball. And we go into the holiday season, Thursday's Thanksgiving, on a very sour note in Denver, Colorado. I previewed two games on the last podcast on Thursday, talking about how the Nuggets were going to play two contenders in their next three games. They lost to both of those contenders. The game against the Dallas Mavericks was much closer, though Luka Doncic was not playing in that contest. Nikola Jokic was unbelievable in that game. But that was so long ago. They beat the Lakers on Saturday, and we end up with last night, Monday night, against the New York Knicks, who I picked on this podcast to win the NBA championship this year. And boy, did it look like the New York Knicks could win an NBA championship last night. And as much as it was the Knicks being awesome, it was the Nuggets lacking energy. And there were some real problems in this game. And honestly, there was a point in the game where I just thought to myself, the game doesn't even matter anymore. What they say now after the game is more interesting than the game itself, which we'll get to in a second. But 145 points by the Knicks. That's the most the Denver Nuggets have allowed in a regulation game, post or regular season, so a non-overtime game, since 1991, when Paul Westhead was famously the coach of the disaster Nuggets, who could not defend, and they were running that up-tempo scheme that he ran at Loyola Marymount and with the Los Angeles Lakers. So the theater coach who turned into an NBA coach. That's how bad their defense was last night. And OG Anunoby torches them for 40 points. OG, of course, the guy the Denver Nuggets messed up on the draft, the year they got Trey Lyles and Tyler Lydon in that draft. They traded down to get those guys. They knew they wanted OG. They thought they could get him later. They traded one pick later than the Toronto Raptors, who former Nuggets GM Masai Ujiri knew that the Nuggets wanted OG Anunoby, so he took him before the Nuggets could. And it's that singular rotation player, a single more body, that the Denver Nuggets are clearly missing right now. And it's that singular more valuable NBA player that probably will separate the difference between the Nuggets being a single-time champion and a dynasty. That's not to say they maybe cannot develop one of those guys. We have those hopes with Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and to some extent, Christian Brown's kind of getting there. He was terrible last night, but you get the point. Anyway, so the Nuggets get throttled. And Nikola Jokic has come back for the last three games after missing three games. The Nuggets went 1-2 in those games. So now they're 4 of their last 6 they've lost. And I'm not panicking. I'm really not. But I'm very concerned. And I did some reporting. I found out some things after the Nuggets game last night and talking to some guys. And there's a lot of public traction on some of these quotes. And I'm just going to read you some of the quotes from my story that I wrote on denversports.com because they were fascinating. And I'll put it this way. Friday night, Michael Malone called out his team. And then he did it again last night to the point where I literally needed to search a synonym for called out, and I had to go with sounds off. So this is how Michael Malone started his press conference. Bennett from the Denver Post asked, do you flush a game like that, or do you watch the film and go over it? And Malone said, nah, curse that. We're not flushing it. You don't flush a game like that when you get embarrassed. You don't flush it when you give up 45 points. You don't flush it when you didn't play hard. You didn't play with effort. You didn't play with difficulty. I'm not flushing anything. And then he went on to basically say, Russell Westbrook's vocal, but we need more than Russell Westbrook. I need Nikola Jokic. I need Jamal Murray. I need guys that have been here in the starting lineup to be vocal. And tonight we got embarrassed. I mean, that's just what happened is, let's be honest, it's happened tonight for 4 quarters. It happened against Dallas in the first half. So 16 games in, we're talking about effort, and it also happened in Memphis for game 1. And this is regardless of who's in and who's out. Who do we want to be as a team? Give them credit. But we did not play urgent, physical, and desperate, motivated basketball like them. We didn't show up, and then he later inferred, basically, if this is the type of energy we're providing, this is not a playoff team in Denver. And I agree with everything Michael Malone has said I do find it interesting that now this is his second time in 3 games, as I've said, calling out the Nuggets. And I wonder if it falls on deaf ears a little bit. I also cannot remember a time where he's directly called out Nikola Jokic. He has Jamal Murray, he has Michael Porter, and, just about everybody else. But Nikola Jokic, and to back Russell Westbrook in the same sense as you are going a little bit at Jokic, I found very interesting. And I do wonder if there's a certain schism that could build off of that between Jokic and Malone, and certain factions that could be decided between different things going on with the Nuggets. We already know that there's factions between the front office and the coaching staff, but factions within the team. And then all the while, the Nuggets are having this awful, awful game. Russell Westbrook lights up for 24 points in the fourth quarter alone, which is the most points he's ever had in a quarter in his illustrious NBA career. And it was all garbage time. It didn't matter. The Nuggets had 1 field goal by their bench with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter in the game. So it wasn't as Russ was just amazing all game. No, he lit up the Knicks in garbage time. But I do wonder, and I've talked about this with Russ, if the things he provides is a short-term benefit. The energy, the physicality he brings. Because every team's talked about that for a month. And then a couple more weeks go by and you're at 2-3 months of Russ being on your team. Ever since Oklahoma City, you hit month 2, month 3, guys don't want Russ on their team. And I wonder if we're starting to see this shifting point with Russ. And again, this is weird because we're talking about a mentality thing when his actual basketball has been good. Like, he's been good on the court for the Nuggets, but it's a fit thing, right? Like, DeMarcus Cousins was good basketball-wise for the Nuggets, but he didn't fit in their locker room. So he couldn't play for them. And then the other stuff that's really interesting off last night. Jamal Murray, in turn, calls out his teammates. It's a long season, and guys have lives outside of basketball. We just beat LA in LA. We got some guys who live in LA, and they stayed in LA. And I don't think the focus was there from everyone. And that's what happens when you don't have the focus. It's not on the coach. It's not on anyone but the guys out there on the court. Really fascinating, because Jamal Murray, before that game 1 in Memphis that Michael Malone mentioned a lack of effort, where Jamal Murray struggled mightily in that game in Memphis, Jamal Murray left the team for a night to go see a UFC fight in New York. And I don't even think Jamal Murray's necessarily calling out, so maybe that's a bad phrase by me. It's moreover that Jamal is building in the same excuse for himself that he's building for his teammates. And I wonder if he is, in a way, saying something about Russ and obviously maybe Peyton Watson because he's from LA, because those are the LA guys. But it's just kind of bizarre, right? Like, you're seeing some smoke here that there's some separation between the guys on the team and, the guys who have won championships. Why are they going to listen to Russell Westbrook and his vocal leadership when he hasn't won anything in the NBA? I don't know. I'm just kind of tossing all this out here. I don't really have an answer to most of this. I'm just telling you what we're publicly hearing right now is really bad. And on top of that, we're talking about energy 16 games into the season, in which the Denver Nuggets are now 9-7, and their 3-time MVP is playing 38 minutes a night, when in past season he's only played 34 minutes a night. So they're not even good. The Nuggets are like okay right now, and they're getting an all-time season from Nikola Jokic, who's playing more than he ever has. So that's pretty concerning. But part of me looks at the schedule and says, okay, at Utah, at LA Clippers, Golden State home, at Cleveland, that's tough. At Washington, at Atlanta, at Portland, at New Orleans, Phoenix, that's Christmas. And you go, okay, Utah winnable. Clippers at LA, tough place to play in the new stadium. Golden State here, They've been a different team since DeAnthony Melton got hurt. Cleveland on the road, that's tough. Washington, Atlanta, Portland, New Orleans, that's easy. Phoenix here, you think you can take care of. So can you get through this next stretch of schedule? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. 6-3. And if that's the case, you're going to be 15-10. And that's around the time when Aaron Gordon's going to come back. So I tell you, Aaron Gordon misses a month and you're still 5 games over 500 by Christmas. So it's worth keeping perspective, right? Because there are signs like that where it's like, pace-wise, they're doing okay-ish, despite some big red flag things we're talking about. And the fact that the Nuggets have already lost half as many games at home as they did all of last season. And clearly they're struggling against Western Conference teams. And then they go out on the road and beat the Lakers by 25 in their own barn. So it's a give and take, right? So I'm not sure where I'm landing on the Nuggets. I'm not panicked. But I do agree that they probably need 1 to 2 more guys. I don't know where they're coming from. I also believe that they need to find a way to get Nikola Jokic off the floor more. He seems a little frustrated to me. He seems like he's forcing it, which I understand because no one on his team is really stepping up in some of these games. And when you got a game against the New York Knicks, who just match up extremely well with the Nuggets, particularly when Aaron Gordon isn't out there, the shortcomings pop up even more so. And they can just clog and hound and make life difficult for Jamal Murray, who has had trouble creating space. But let's be honest, there isn't much space for him to go to because the Nuggets shooting isn't that great. But he looked a little bit better last night in the game. The comments, again, concerning. I want to shift gears a little bit. Go to overall just kind of a look at Michael Malone. So this is a weird time for this to happen because Malone's clearly not happy with his team. He's been calling them out recently, and he's trying to stoke a fire under the guys and mentality stuff. But this is year 10 of Michael Malone. 433 wins, was honored last night for breaking the Nuggets franchise record in wins. He's clearly the greatest coach in franchise history. There's not a number 2. And I know people have disputed certain things here and there. But I'm still not sure to this day that the Nuggets win a title without Malone. Just in that season alone and the way he made adjustments in that postseason, I thought was masterful. And that's not even to talk about his coaching up of Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic. I mean, there's a chance that if Nikola Jokic doesn't play for Michael Malone, he never starts in the NBA, let alone turns into this. So Michael Malone saw something earlier than just about anyone. And it's the only second-round pick that's turned into a 3-time MVP. Pretty impressive. So, you know, there's some stuff going on in the Nuggets organization, like I've alluded to, between Booth and Malone, clearly. Booth's in a contract year. Malone's got some time left on his contract. And, you know, there's a case to be made that maybe Booth shouldn't come back. We'll talk about that in a different episode. But I just think Malone's gotten more than the sum of the parts in all but one season that he's coached, and unfortunately that was last year. I think Malone was part of the reason why the Nuggets bowed out early, but I'm not the guy telling you to fire him. I'm not the guy saying, you know, Malone. I don't think the Nuggets are who they are today without Michael Malone, and I don't think they win that title without Michael Malone. So I think we just need to pause and give him a lot of recognition and his flowers, as people say nowadays, because he's done such a great job. And his coaching tree is starting to range across the NBA, whether it be guys like Chris Finch or, you know, Wes Unseld was coaching for quite a bit, Jody Fernandez, David Adelman's going to get a job here very soon. Michael Malone's had a very great impact on the NBA, just as his father did. And I've enjoyed my interactions with him. And he has defined an era of Nuggets basketball the same way Doug Moe did, and the run and gun style and all the things that Doug brought in the 1980s, and then George Karl brought back in the, you know, late 2000s, early 2010s. And what is the style of Denver Nuggets basketball? And I thought it was poetic for the Nuggets, who in their franchise history never beat the Los Angeles Lakers in a playoff series, never got past a Western Conference Finals, always running into the Lakers and losing. Mo couldn't do it. Carl couldn't do it. Malone was the guy to do it. And he beat them twice in 2 playoff series the last 2 years. And they're 13-1 against the Lakers in their last 14 games. So I thought it was poetic that Malone's 433rd win came against the franchise that has haunted the Nuggets for so long, and that Malone was the only person to be able to coach and slay that demon. So that was pretty cool to see over the weekend, and I enjoyed that very much, in between some 2 really rough performances from the Nuggets. And we'll see what they bring on in Utah on Wednesday. That place historically has been a house of horrors for the Nuggets. That team is bad, but again, they just beat the Knicks. The Knicks showed how upset they were by losing to the Jazz, by coming back and, kicking the Nuggets behind. So I'd love to see the Nuggets go full gas on Wednesday and just kill the Jazz, and then roll that back into LA for another weekend where I don't think anyone's going to be staying an extra day in LA against the Clippers after what we just saw in Denver. The next time I will talk to you will be Tuesday, December 3rd, the afternoon before the Nuggets play the Golden State Warriors. I don't want you to miss that episode, so make sure you like and subscribe to Denver Sports on YouTube. Maybe even hit that noti bell if you're feeling a little spicy. Jake Shapiro, Mile High Hoops Podcast. Make sure you're following all of our coverage over this long holiday weekend on denversports.com. I hope you enjoy your time with family and friends. Watch a little ball, watch a little football, all the balls, and we'll talk to you next week.